Ave Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus said to his disciples, "You are the salt of the earth. But if salt loses its taste, with what can it be seasoned? It is no longer good for anything but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city set on a mountain cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and then put it under a bushel basket. It is set on a lampstand, where it gives light to all in the house. Just so, your light must shine before others, so that they may see your good deeds and glorify your heavenly Father." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I said something in my homily yesterday morning on Saturday that I think it needs to be repeated. And what I said was this: grace is given according to office. Grace is given according to office. And office is my state in life. In other words, as I said, Pope Francis has the grace for his office as the Vicar of Christ. No one else has that. No one. Bishop Libashi has the grace for his office as the Bishop of the Diocese of Manchester. No one else has that. Father Mo, as pastor of this parish, has the grace of his office for this parish. No one else has that. Every couple that walks down the aisle and presents themselves for marriage has the grace of their office. God gives them what they need to be the spouses they're being called to be and the parents that they may become. Every child that is baptized in that font is given the grace to be a Christian. God never ever calls us to anything in life without giving us the tools necessary to do what he's calling us to do. Never. The just man is the light in the darkness for the upright. No small task. And by the way, we are not the light. He is. We are the lamps. He has placed his light in us. And so his light must shine through me. The evidence that I am light and salt in the world are the Beatitudes that we heard proclaimed last weekend. I'll say it again. The evidence that I am light in the world and salt in the world is that I am living the Beatitudes. Remember, let's see. Poor in spirit. What does that mean? It simply means this, my brothers and sisters, that I know who I am and I know who he is and I know where to go to get what I need. I'm poor in spirit. Those who mourn, those of us who recognize the sadness of what's going on out there. And the worse that it looks out there, the better it looks in here. The meek. Meekness is not weakness. It is a humility to empty myself of all of what my ego tells me that I'm not. Those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Those who desire to be holy. The merciful. Those who understand the linchpin of our faith. That we cannot present ourselves before God asking forgiveness without giving those who need to be forgiven. Those who want to be like Our Lady, immaculate and pure. Peacemakers. Those of us who recognize and understand that we are constantly, as St. Paul tells us, in need of being reconciled to God and to one another. I want to tell you a story. Sometime not too long ago, a man came to me and he said, "Father, I need to go to confession." He said, "Because I know that I can't be reconciled with God without being reconciled to my brother. And I haven't spoken to my brother in 40 years. Poor in spirit." He was willing to empty himself of self, recognizing who he was and who he is and where to go to get what he needed. And so he said to me, "But I'm afraid. I'm afraid of being rejected." Did you listen to the second reading from St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians when he said, "When I came to you with weakness and fear and much trembling"? We're all afraid. This man was afraid of being rejected by his brother. They hadn't spoken in 40 years. But he said, "I put that aside because I knew I was sad inside. And I decided to be meek, not weak, but to be humble. And to go to my brother because I wanted to be in right relationship with him. Those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Those who hunger and thirst to be in right relationship." And he understood that he could not be in right relationship with God unless he was in right relationship with his brother. So he went to his brother and he said, "I'm sorry." But that's only half the equation. The other half of the equation is, will you forgive me? He was afraid. He was afraid of being rejected. And you know what happened when he went to his brother? They embraced, and you know what his brother said to him? "I was afraid too." They were both afraid. Fear kept them apart for 40 years. 40 years fear kept them apart. And when he said he was sorry and asked forgiveness, there was a purity in his heart. Something that he'd been carrying for 40 years was lifted, was gone. He was a peacemaker. That's what it looks like to be light and salt. That's what it looks like. You know what's interesting? You know what next weekend's gospel is? If you're on your way to the altar and you recognize and remember that you have something against your brother, leave your gift and go and be reconciled with your brother. You can't make this stuff up. You know what? I don't know the people in this church, but I know one thing. We all have a story. I have mine, and you have yours. And we all have people in our lives, okay, that we need to forgive. So I want to encourage, challenge you this morning to do what this man did. If you have anybody in your life that you need to be reconciled to, and if fear is keeping you away. Remember, St. Paul said that he came in fear and trembling, but he said, I came in demonstration and power of the Spirit. In other words, Paul was not a great orator. He didn't come with any lofty words. He came with a demonstration of the Beatitudes. That's how he came to the people. That's how he ingratiated himself to the people. It's how we live in right relationship with each other. None of us is perfect with these things. But as we go about our day, and we try to live out what it means to be light and salt, mindful that grace comes with office. The baptized are given the grace to live out their Christian life. God put his light in me and in you. To be poor in spirit, to recognize I don't have it, he does. To be meek, to recognize that my ego lies to me all the time, and to empty myself of self so that his light can shine in and through me. To desire to be holy and to know where to go to get what I need, and to be merciful and to forgive over and over and over and over and over and over again, because that's what it means to be light. And to be a peacemaker. And to recognize that that is what the world needs, because that's the sadness. That's the sadness. Grace comes with office.